Mr. Ross because of the impact that scouting has had on our country. So as we journey through this, I'm going to take us through about 100 years of scouting in 5 to 7 minutes here to hit some of the highlights so that you can clearly understand that scouting is not just a club, but it's an organization that has really benefited this nation. But it was selling $2.3 million Liberty loan bond dollars to support the war that was going on at that time. Isn't that amazing? They sold war savings stamps to a value of $53 million at that time and distributed more than 300 million pieces of government literature in support of what was going on in our nation. In 1918, Scouts rendered nationwide service during the influenza epidemic. And in 1920, the first World Jamboree took place in London, England. There were 8,000 Scouts from 34 countries that were present, and 301 councils represented. Also, in 1926, the first Silver Buffalo Award for distinguished services to boyhood were awarded. Fast forwarding to 1930 to 1939, the Cub Scouts program was launched in 1930. In 1931, the first Silver Beaver Award for distinguished service to boyhood within a council. And Mr. Ross is a recipient of the Silver Beaver Award. In 1934, President Roosevelt called for help from the Scouts for the distressed and needy. And at that time, the Scouts collected 1.8 million items of clothing, household furniture, foodstuffs, and supplies. The membership in 1935 passed 1 million Scouts at that time. We also had the first National Jamboree in 1937. Washington, D.C. was the location, invitation extended by President Teddy Roosevelt. 27,000 Scouts attended in 1937. Isn't that amazing? In 1941, Philmont Scout Ranch was established. Wade Phillips donated 127,000 acres to the Boy Scouts of America. And I was blessed to have had a Philmont experience in Cimarron, New Mexico, thanks to my parents and thanks to Mr. Ross. The first Silver Antelope Award for distinguished service to youth within a region, 1943. 1941 through 45, another wartime, included 69 specific requests from the government to the Boy Scouts of America. Collected 30 million pounds of rubber during a 2-week drive for resources to fund the war. 20,000 Scouts earned the General Douglas MacArthur Medal for Victory Gardens and distributed pledge cards for war bonds and saving stamps. How many of you know Boy Scouts have made a difference in our country? Yes. In 1950, the first Boy Scout stamp issued by the U.S. Post Office Department in 1950. 2 million pounds of clothing collected for domestic and foreign relief in 1952. Distributed more than 1 million posters and 30 million Liberty Bell doorknob hangers in the Get Out to Vote campaign in 1952. 20 millionth member of the Boy Scouts joined in 1952. We also have more than 1 million adult volunteers in 1954, and the 15 millionth copy of the Handbook for Boys was printed in 1957. We fast forward to 1965, where we had the 500,000th Eagle Scout was honored in 1965. 40 millionth member registered in 1965. First female explorers introduced in 1969, and the lady said amen. 7th National Jamboree in 1969, which Mr. Ross participated in Farragut State Park in Idaho. Also, in 1971, Scouting Keep America Beautiful Day in June 5th of 71, Scouts collected more than 1 million tons of litter on that particular day. Farragut State Park, Idaho, the 8th National Jamboree, of which I believe Mr. Ross was there as well. 10th National Jamboree in 1981, of which Mr. Ross was present for that at Fort A.P. Hill in Virginia. The 1 millionth Eagle Scout was penned in 1982. First Scouting for Food National Good Turn in 1988. We also have, as we wrap up this era in 2000, the 100 millionth youth member in 2000. We have Aero Corps in 2008, $5.6 million worth of improvements made by the Boy Scouts in national parks in 2008. And lastly, the 2 millionth Eagle Scout was penned in 2009, Mr. Anthony Thomas. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we come from a rich heritage, an organization that's making a difference. But no organization would be able to move us forward if it did not have great leaders. And I wanted to share that with you so you could get a perspective of what Mr. Ross has meant to us over the last 60 years. Just to highlight before I introduce Mr. Forrest White, also a former Eagle Scout, but Mr. Ross has received the Silver Beaver Award, is the council level Distinguished Service Award of the Boy Scouts of America. Recipients of this award are registered adult leaders who have made an impact on the lives of youth through service given to the council. The Silver Beaver is an award given to those who implement the scouting program and perform community service through hard work, self-sacrifice, dedication, and many years of service. It is given, listen to this, to those who do not actively seek it. The medal consists of a silver beaver pendant suspended from a blue and white ribbon worn around the neck. Recipients may wear the corresponding square knot with a white strand over the blue strand on the Boy Scouts of America uniform. Mr. Ross is also the recipient of the Good Shepherd Award. The Good Shepherd emblem is a national recognition for adults who have rendered outstanding service to Baptist youth through their church and one of the national youth serving organizations, the Boy Scouts of America, Girl Scouts, Campfire USA, or American Heritage. Some of the requirements is that the recipients must demonstrate leadership as a good shepherd in his or her service to youth, a minimum of 5 years of service in a local church, have a minimum of 5 years of active service in one or more national youth agencies, actively participate in the worship life and program of his or her congregation, and be of substantial Christian character. Assist and encourage youth to serve their Lord through the Pray programs, and display outstanding service in organizing, promoting, and strengthening youth serving agencies operated by Baptist churches. Mr. Ross is a recipient of the Good Shepherd Award. I could go on and on tonight. Even as we have been here today, Mr. Ross still received an award here about 6:15 this evening, and more will be shared about that. But we're truly before an amazing, amazing legend, and we're thankful that he is in our midst today. Thank you, Mr. Ross. There's one other prestigious award that I just wanted to make mention of. There's so many that I could, but the Whitney Young Award, Whitney Young, many of you knew, was one of the movers and shakers in the civil rights movement. He wanted to make sure that there was equitable access to socioeconomic opportunities for the disenfranchised. And Mr. Ross received that Whitney Young Award also. And the award is described as recognized outstanding service by an adult individual for demonstrated involvement in the development and implementation of scouting opportunities for youth from rural and low-income areas. And Whitney Young was an advisor to President Johnson years ago. So Mr. Ross has also received that award.
Amen. My name is Charles Bowers, and I am a neighbor and a friend to you. Right. I am happy to be able to share briefly about a friend and a fellow named Linwood B. Ross. I first met Linwood Ross in the Ebenezer Baptist Church, 1948. He was teaching a Sunday school class. Although our friendship did not take off until I moved into the West End, in the neighborhood where he was. And my 3 sons and his 2 sons, they played together. The boys was active and stout, so I also entered into the scout program at FNU, serving as advanced committee and participating in his camping out. I remember a member I have of Brother Ross was in the camp that he was on Sunday morning. He would call his boys together and have church. There was no church out there, but he would have church out in the camp. Right. And you know, by him having camp, he really didn't preach. Those sermons were good. I had never seen him in a pulpit, but I wasn't surprised at him preaching the word of God to his children. And I told my wife when I got home that I said, Deacon Ross preaches as good as some ministers I've heard preach. He wasn't about to let the parents say that he took his children out there and to miss church. They had church out there in the camp. Linwood Ross has been a Christian brother and a good friend. A dedicated leader in the deacon at Ebenezer Baptist Church. A father figure to his son, to my son, and to his son. A constant through many, many years. I am so proud to stand here tonight and tell you that he is a good man. Amen. Godly man. Amen. And he certainly deserved the honor bestowed upon him tonight. Yes. Brother Ross, I never will forget the saying that you used to tell the boys. Let your teeth may be false, but the tongue speak true. All right.
We talk about a great man. His name was John Wooten. He was the coach at UCLA who won multiple championships. We didn't know what greatness was back in the day, but now we know. Mr. Ross was that greatness.
It's such a privilege to be here on this special evening with this special honoree. I'm particularly excited. I'm mother of 2 Eagle Scouts. And when they heard about this evening, they said, wow, it's such an important evening. Thank you all for your support, what you're doing here. Again, it's just so wonderful to recognize our particular Scoutmaster who's given such wonderful service, who's provided what he has to our community. And we're all just so privileged and blessed to have him with us, and to have all of you all with us. Again, it's just such a privilege to be here. Thank you all for what you do. Just thank you for just letting me say that I'm here, and thank you for what you do. Such an evening. Thank you so much.
He was just as effective in terms of teaching myself and other scouts I went through with the way of scouting, as he probably was the older scouts that came through before us, like Dr. Jackson. We all talk, and the lessons are consistent and never fail through time. They're the same, and they work. And it's so amazing that he continues to go on today. He truly harbors a spirit of passion and commitment for the scouting program. I want to highlight something about Mr. Ross that was always special to me as a young man, and that was his words. Anyone who knows Mr. Ross knows his quotes. And although he may not have invented all of them, he uses them in ways that are truly effective. But what I love so much about them is that they were not only true to his life, but they were true and effective for our lives as well. So I'm going to go over a couple. The first one is, to thine own self be true, which is self-explanatory. Be true to yourself. This is a real good piece of advice for someone to give you while you're still in your teenage years, because it makes you pause and think on whether or not you have been true to yourself in school or in the world or wherever. The second quote Mr. Ross would use when we may say something that we plan to do, but we were hyping it up or just talking up the situation. He would say, mouth say anything. But it's your actions that define who you are as a person, which is so true. The third quote, and one of my favorites as a leader, was used when I or someone else may show concern about how well we were represented in terms of troop numbers at scouting events where other troops would be present. But Mr. Ross was never concerned about that. He would always say it's not the quantity of scouts we're taking, but the quality of those scouts. And what's so great is that Mr. Ross already knew he was sending good quality scouts to represent the troop and the church. And I imagine that if there were scouts he had to think twice about on the issue of quality, they probably weren't going. I think the songwriter Sullivan Pugh had men like Scoutmaster Ross in mind when he wrote the song, May the Work I've Done Speak for Me. Mr. Ross never asked for anything in return for the good work he does, and today his work is speaking for him. I can think of no one who deserves this honor more than him. Congratulations, Scoutmaster Ross.